Assalamu alaikum. We got the Bitcoin ETF this week. The price of Bitcoin pumped very briefly and then it dumped. In this live, we're going to go over what exactly happened, why did the price dump, and what do I think about the price moving forward, along with an assortment of other assets and events that have moved in a big way this week. So without further ado, let's get started. So what happened? What the heck happened? There was so much anticipation for this Bitcoin ETF. There was so much talk about what's going to happen to the price, all of the inflows of money. Did those inflows come? And if they did come, why didn't it affect the price? As always, before I go into anything, this is not financial advice. Before you make any investment decisions, make sure to do your own due diligence. As I mentioned, the price of Bitcoin pumped to 48 and some change after the announcement that the Bitcoin ETFs were approved. This is something that Bitcoin advocates have been waiting for the last 15 years. And now that it's here, it's surreal for many in the space. And I really think that this is a pivotal moment in financial history that is going to go down in the history books because of the impact that it will have on money in general. Money will never be the same. Savings will never be the same now that a Bitcoin ETF is available in the largest equity market in the world, which is the United States. Not only that, but crypto gained legitimacy. Bitcoin obviously gained legitimacy, and the prospects of banning Bitcoin have now all but been decimated. So let's look at the total flows into these Bitcoin ETFs in the first 2 days of trading, Thursday and Friday. Today is Saturday that I'm shooting this video on. So the total flows were actually quite significant, with sort of a wrench thrown in. The total flows reached 800 million, and that's the net into the dozen or so ETFs that were approved. However, there were outflows from GBTC, that is the wrench that was thrown into this whole equation. And this is reason number one why we saw the price actually dump after reaching that local high that we spoke about. So, as I mentioned in previous lives, GBTC have criminally kept their fees, their management fees for the commodity service which they provide, which is allowing equity investors to access Bitcoin in their brokerage accounts for this commodity service. Now that there are 11 other ETFs providing the same service, they are charging a 1.5% fee, whereas the lowest fee in the space is closer to 0.2%. So they're more than 7 times higher than the lowest fee provider. And as one can expect, people started selling their GBTC shares, and one would expect to rotate them to lower fee ETFs. And the selling that happened, now one may say, well, the selling should be met with buying, right? These people are selling and then they're buying other ETFs. Well, that's not exactly the case for 2 reasons. Number one, when you're selling your GBTC, if you notice that the price is falling, many investors may be of the opinion that, hey, I should not actually be buying right now. I should be waiting before I actually buy into this new ETF that I want to buy into. Maybe I can get a cheaper price. And number two, when ETFs actually get the order to buy Bitcoin, so shares are bought, and this net 800 million that went into these ETFs, The ETFs don't actually have to back their shares, their issued shares immediately with Bitcoin. They have a couple of days to make their purchase. And so the ETFs themselves are thinking to themselves, the price is falling, and actually they'll have much better information than the average investor. They'll look at the order books. They'll see that there's, hey, a lot of sell orders still on these order books. Let me wait until some of these sell orders are cleared out and then do my purchase of Bitcoin. And I think many ETFs have done that. So I think the impact of these flows really has not been fully appreciated by the market, because a lot of these inflows will likely not hit the market until the market opens up again. So that's reason number one. So we had this wrench in the form of GBTC not lowering its fees to anything competitive, which caused a lot of outflows out of GBTC. The second reason is that you had a lot of, and here the green bars are basically net inflows onto exchanges. So Bitcoin coming onto exchanges. And this is typically precedes selling of these Bitcoins. So if people are holding their Bitcoin off of exchanges, they'll only put them back onto exchanges when they want to sell them. And so we had a lot of selling on January 10th. So a lot of these sellers, one can expect, were sell the news folks that were in it for a relatively short-term trade. If you had gotten into Bitcoin at the time that the ETF applications were first put in, around 6 or 7 months ago, and you sold the day of the announcement, you were up close to 77%. So there was a lot of pressure on people who were in Bitcoin to actually take some profits. So you had a lot of inflows onto exchanges. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday net inflows onto exchanges, which suggests a lot of people were selling. And also, I think the Friday sellers may have been a lot of lettuce hand holders who kind of panicked when they saw the price was moving south on them. Perhaps they weren't in it for the long run, and they bought into the notion that there was going to be a pump immediately after the Bitcoin ETF announcement. And since that pump didn't come, they're selling. So that's reason number two for the drop in price. And then reason number three, some banks were just flat out denying their customers requests to buy Bitcoin ETFs. Vanguard being one of them. I think Merrill Lynch was another bank that denied their customers access to these Bitcoin ETFs. Now, this is just, to be honest, sour grapes by these banks. Eventually, what's going to happen is either these firms are going to capitulate and they're going to offer their customers these Bitcoin ETFs, or customers are just going to leave these banks for other banks and other brokerages. So this is, a short-term hurdle, as is the GBTC outflows, as are the short-term sellers. These are only short-term hurdles for the price. And that's why I think with the 800 million net inflows into these Bitcoin ETFs, it shattered basically all other records for ETF launches. And I think that the pressure on the Bitcoin price is going to be vertically upwards, and it may take some time for this to fully materialize. You have a lot of moving parts, and it may take time for this to settle. This is time where I think it's good for people who found themselves maybe speculating on the wrong end of this trade, for people to fill up their bags with Bitcoin. This is, I think, if you look, so 12 months into the future, if you're asked, hey, would you buy Bitcoin at 42,000, you would jump at that deal. So I think, buying at these prices, your future self is going to thank you. These prices, we may never see these prices again for Bitcoin. In other news, the Houthis in Yemen have basically interrupted flow of goods from the that flow through the Red Sea through the Suez Canal, and are forcing many cargo ships to go around Africa, which takes longer and costs more money. Now, I think personally, the Houthi leadership made the correct assessment that, if we come out with this public position and in support of Gaza, we're going to find that our hold of power and our position in power is solidified, legitimized, because this is a very popular position amongst the people of Yemen. The people of Yemen certainly support this decision by the Houthis. So this is going to give them a lot of legitimacy. And the only way to increase the legitimacy of the Houthis even more, even further, would be if they were attacked by the West. And so the West did exactly that. They struck the Houthis, and to be honest, the Houthis, their leadership, are playing chess. The West, they're playing checkers. I mean, I don't know what is going through the minds of policymakers in the US and the UK, where they think, oh, well, the correct course of action here is not to actually ask Israel to, hey, maybe stop your genocide. No, the correct course of action is to actually, start another war with the Houthis. I honestly, don't know what the heck these guys are thinking. But in response to the shipping delays that are happening because of the Red Sea events, Tesla came out and say, hey, Tesla and other companies, Volvo being one of them, came out and said that our output may be interrupted by the events in the Red Sea. I think you're going to find, depending on how long this takes, you may find other companies follow suit. What this is going to cause, it's going to cause inflation of prices. Prices are going to go up for products and goods that go through that particular waterway. So Tesla, in response to this, and there are a few other news items out there that were adverse for Tesla, experienced close to 8% drop in the last week only. Honestly, I think the long-term prospects of this company have never been brighter, and perhaps in the next week, I'm going to do a deep dive for you on Tesla ahead of their earnings, so that if you want to pick up some shares, then you can make that decision in an informed manner. By the way, leave a like if you enjoy these types of lives. I'd really appreciate that. So this may be a really good opportunity for people who are looking for an entry into this very promising company. Now, I looked at the target rate as it relates to interest rates. I looked at the target rate and what's priced into the markets today. And it looks like for the meeting in March, there is close to a 75%, more than a 75% probability priced into the markets today of an interest rate cut, despite the hotter than expected inflation numbers that we received this week. So this tells me that another hotter than expected print in CPI may cause the markets to drop even further. And for us at PIF, people who are following this channel, members, we know that this means fire sales, right? Fire sales on the assets that we want to buy that we couldn't buy before because maybe their price was not in our buy range. A lot of assets that that are on our watch list will get into that buy range in the event of this probability decreasing. So that's something to keep an eye on. So in summary, the BTC ETF impact on price, it may disappoint in the near term, but it's going to exceed expectations in the long term. Take advantage of this time that we're in right now, where we know that the ETFs have been approved and yet the price has not yet reflected it. So this is an opportunity for investors that get it. And there may be fire sales in the near future on quality assets or a sharp recovery for others. So on Thursday and Friday, I was a buyer of Bitcoin miners. I bought 3 different miners just to diversify my exposure. I do think with Bitcoin getting a price pump, which eventually I think will happen, inshallah, these miners will do well. Certainly, if you look at the history of Bitcoin miners during bull runs, they've actually outpaced the appreciation in Bitcoin price. And the reason why is because if Bitcoin's price goes up 10%, their operating income may go up by 20% because there's a lot of fixed costs that are involved in mining. So it's kind of a way to turbocharge your Bitcoin returns in a way that is halal, but obviously you want to make sure that you are investing in miners that are going to make it, because after the halving that is scheduled for April, some miners may not make it if they can't compete on hash power with the rest of the network. So keep that in mind. Hope you found this beneficial. If you did, make sure to leave a like, as I mentioned, and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I go live next. Thank you for everyone who came. I'll take questions very quickly. Wa alaikum salam, Muhammad Sulaiman. Nice to see you. Most of them are not halal. I think you're talking about Bitcoin miners. I think actually a lot of them have become halal recently because of the fixing of their balance sheets, since now their businesses are more profitable, more cash producing compared to, say, a year ago when Bitcoin was, 15 or 20,000. So a lot of them have a lot healthier balance sheets, less interest-bearing debt. So there's actually a lot of them that I'm comfortable with from a halal perspective. Why buy Bitcoin ETF instead of directly buying Bitcoin? The reason for that is if you don't want to self-custody, you don't want to take the risk of losing your Bitcoin. And this is not a trivial risk. Now, I know that a lot of Bitcoin purists push all the time, self-custody, not your keys, not your coins. Listen, this is not true all the time. Some people are just not that technically savvy. And to encourage these people to have their savings on a USB drive, I think is not the right way to go about it. I think it's actually wrong. I think, and even for myself, to be honest, I think a Bitcoin ETF is a perfectly good way to get exposure to Bitcoin without running the risk of losing your keys, losing your hardware wallet. I don't plan, I'm buying Bitcoin because I think it's going to go up in price. I don't plan on, making overseas payments with Bitcoin. So I don't really see the need for self-custody. Sup. We got a comment that says sup. Sup right back at you, Kaz Mataz. Nice, nice username. Vanguard issue is nice to see you hella confused. Hopefully with these lives you become less and less confused over time. Vanguard issue is not a big one at all, though I do anticipate a big dip, new opportunity to buy more alts before the BTC halving. Perhaps you are right. And yeah, and Mohammed Sulaiman saying, personally, I'd rather buy Bitcoin directly and hold in cold storage, but I can see people buying the ETF. I can see that too. All right, thank you all for coming. Until next time, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum, and peace be upon you all.